Okay, this is English 201, week 6, part 7. Um, so the Airbnb guys that they she has that they have into the house. This is another one of those moments that is potentially funny, but you're probably not seeing that it's funny. And again, I don't mean like it's not like my students, like most people don't think it's funny, but it is kind of funny. The funny thing when you picture these three guys in your mind. They're described, they all have beards, they all read the same newspaper, they all have sticks, they all have hats, they're like some kind of uh I don't know, it's like they're like cartoon characters. Like it's like three guys and they look exactly the same and they go everywhere together and they do everything together. There's a That's funny. Like it's funny in like an old movie, like a movie from the 20s or 30s. You probably don't know that, but like oh, it's like a cartoon thing. Like three kind of identical. They all move. Like you picture them all bowing at the same time, all shaking hands at the same time. The little leader guy says the thing, and the two guys just nod their heads, and they all look identical, and nobody can tell them apart. They're dressed the same. They got the same sticks. They got the same hats. They got the same newspapers. They got the It's just there's something ridiculous about them. They all act in complete unison all the time. Um, I mean, they have a leader that kind of does some things, but basically, they all three of them are in unison constantly. And there's something really funny about it. Um, cool. Okay, this is going good. There's a really key moment that I think relates to working capitalism right here. And again, I know I keep mentioning working capitalism, and I think maybe I'm not emphasizing this enough. That's the theme. It's one of the themes. It's more, obviously also otherness, including trans people and fat people and ill people and old people and deformed people and and people with disabilities and um, there are many themes, but the capitalism is one of the themes that I'm particularly interested in this one. Um, they sat at the table where formerly Gregor has taken his meals with father and mother. They unfolded the serviettes and picked up the knives and forks. Um, and they eat in the kitchen uh, where Gregor and his family used to eat. There's an image here that you might be missing if you're not sort of picturing the story in your mind very vividly. The image is that formerly Gregor in his room watches his mother, his father, and his sister eating dinner at the table. And now instead of mother, father, and sister, it's these three dudes. Why are there three guys? Why not four or two? And again, that's a question that students hate because it's a question about what did Kafka put in the story. Um, it's not just like, oh, three guys happen to want the room. It's because when you Airbnb out your home, you've essentially hired people to replace you. These folks have been kicked. They basically have volunteered to be kicked out of their own kitchen, right? Like that's your dinner table where you have dinner with your family, and they have rented it out to other people. Um, have the family dinner is one of those times when you're supposed to be with each other. And in this case, they have rented out the family. They replaced themselves. They used to have seats at the table, and there are three of them, and they've got three chairs to the kitchen table, and now they've given the three chairs to the three strangers. So essentially, strangers have taken over your thing. Again, like look at Uber, right? It's like you have a car, good. Why don't you use it as a taxi? Like there's no moment when business cannot be done. We cannot allow there to be Mr. Samsa. Um, yeah, so it's crazy that capitalism has resulted in displacing the family from their own home willingly. Like it's bad enough to do that to somebody, to be like, we're kicking you out of your house and we're putting other people here. There's something even more insidious about inviting people to take your place in your house while you become a servant in your own house and they take your position at the kitchen table. And the fact that there's three of them is the three men have replaced Greta and her mother and father. Um, okay, cool. The parents become absolute servants, right? His parents, who had never rented a room out before and therefore showed an exaggerated courtesy towards the three gentlemen, did not even dare to sit on their own chairs. And meanwhile, these guys are eating while Gregor is starving. The family makes food for strangers in order to make money, rather than provide food for their own son, who is starving to death in the next room. They spend more care on these three guys than they do on their own son, because the three guys are doing what Gregor used to do, providing money. And Gregor no longer provides money, and so under capitalism, he's useless. This is how we treat homeless people. We're like, well, they're not making any money, they're not contributing, fuck them. Like, they're human beings, give them a fucking house, man. but they don't. There's empty houses you can put homeless people in. That's a scary statistic. I don't know if you know that. There are a lot of homeless people. There are also a lot of empty houses. New York City, in particular, has a huge number of empty apartments. Um, we could solve the homeless problem today. We could solve the homeless problem today. All you have to do is give every homeless person a home. It's not hard to do. There are actually more empty homes than there are homeless people. So all you have to do is just put them in there and be like, okay, you live here, you have a home. And it would be solved. And by the way, when you have a home, like we often get mad at homeless people, like, why don't you get a job? It's hard to get a job when you don't have a home. Okay, well, why don't you get a home? Well, it's hard to get a home if you don't have a job. So studies prove that it is. My wife does a lot of work with the homeless shelters. Studies will prove they've proven that like if you just give people homes, their lives are easier. But we don't do that. We don't do that because we're like, well, because we think it's unfair. Why do I have to pay rent and this guy gets a house for free? It does just help other people. Just be kind, be nice, make the world a better place. But they're like, ah, rah, 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 money. All right, let's keep going. We're going to wrap this up, man. I'm excited. Yep, talked about that. And they neglect Gregor so much, and it's a very visible. It's visibly neglecting him. Um, he doesn't even really care where he is anymore. He was covered in dust that lay everywhere about his room. He carried thread, hairs, and remains of food about his back and sides. He was too indifferent to everything now to lay on his back and wipe himself on the carpet like he used to do several times a day. So Gregor doesn't even take care of himself anymore. And this is something that happens when people get older, or they have dementia, or they have mental illness. They often just stop doing bathing and taking care of themselves. It's also a sign of clinical depression, is when people just they can't motivate themselves enough to brush their teeth or take a shower. In fact, one of the things they tell you to do when you're having a bad day is just stop and do something nice for yourself. Just take a shower, deodorant, get some sunshine, like do some healthy things, just to kind of drink some water. But Gregor has fallen in, and why shouldn't he be clinically depressed, given that he lives with a family whose the best they can offer him is to hide how disgusting they think he is. That's like the top. That's if they're on a good day. Usually they just are openly disgusted by him. And I get it. He's a giant cockroach. I mean, I would probably be disturbed by it too. But like, that's why he makes him a cockroach. That's why Kafka makes this story about a cockroach, because it sort of tests your ability to care for people that don't have your advantages. People that don't have an ideal body type, or people that don't have, anyway, it puts you in the position of, do you want to be like Gregor's family, or can you find a better way to be? Okay, cool. Let's take a look at this very important passage here at the top. Gregor's sister starts to play the violin. Was he an animal that music could captivate him so? It seemed to him that he was being shown the way to the unknown nourishment he had been yearning for. This is a very interesting moment, that he's so touched by his sister's beautiful playing. He's starving to death because he needs actual physical food. But art provides spiritual food, spiritual nourishment, like going to church. Violin, and of course, it's a famous thing that instrumental music is like the highest art form. If you took 250, that's Walter Pater or Oscar Wilde. No, wait, none of you took 250. Sorry, I said that. I lost my train of thought. Oh, that like it's interesting that like he needs food, or he needs to be able to eat. But it's also, if he's not eating because he's depressed, it's also because he needs spiritual nourishment, and his sister's playing provides him with that. This is one of those funny moments where maybe it's better to be a cockroach. His body heals faster. He enjoys dangling across the ceiling and freedom of movement, and he loves music as a cockroach more than he did as a person. There seem to be some advantages, and there's a way of helping him that his family can't quite figure out or deal with. Okay, I'll pick it up in the next video.